Welcome back to the radio. What time is it where you are? And where are you tuning in from tonight? Earthside, lunar sector, maybe just a quiet bedroom in Nebraska? Feel free to share it in the comments, and if you enjoy these quiet stories, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. Tonight's story takes place in the year 2145, aboard a maintenance ring parked comfortably in the shadow of Earth's magnetosphere. There's no cargo arriving, no inspections pending, just the faint glow of Saturn Cola through frosted vending glass. You are here for one reason: to restock the soda machine. That's it. No emergencies, no system failures. Just you, a clipboard, and 32 cans of something called plasma orange. They say in 2145, vending machines are semi-sentient. This one has strong feelings about cherry cola and once left passive-aggressive notes for the energy drink supplier. Without further ado, let's begin. The vending bay is tucked into the far end of the maintenance ring, a space so quiet, even your boots hesitate to echo. You pass through the sliding bulkhead, and it seals behind you with a lazy hiss, like the station just exhaled. Ahead, fluorescent panels cast a pale green light that makes everything look slightly seasick. You float forward gently, grabbing one of the handrails overhead as the inertia from your last push fades out. The vending machine sits against the left wall, humming softly. Its status light blinks a slow rhythm, not urgent, not even annoyed, just waiting. A single can of deep cherry fizz rests alone behind the glass, like it lost a bet and got left behind. You squint at it. You know for a fact no one on this station drinks cherry. It's either a placeholder or the machine being petty. Again. To your right, a small supply crate floats against the storage clamp. You unlatch the side panel and pull it open. Inside, rows of neatly packed cans, each wrapped in glinting thermal foil to keep them from reacting poorly to the temperature swings out here. Galaxy Grape, Retro Cola, Zesty Moon Mist. You give a small, approving nod. All the heavy hitters. No one will complain tonight. Not that anyone talks much. The floor is magnetized, but inconsistently, so your boots only half stick when you set down. You lean slightly sideways with every step, like you're doing a cautious little dance no one taught you the steps for. The vending machine doesn't care. It just waits, stoic as ever. Its only expression the glowing panel that reads, "Restock required," preferably with enthusiasm. The clipboard floats beside the machine, secured in a thin clamp. It's old, real paper, actual ink, which seems ridiculous for a station full of quantum computers and protein printers. You take it in hand anyway. The machine prefers manual logs. It says the handwriting builds emotional continuity. You start unloading the cans one by one. The hiss of the vacuum-sealed crate gives way to soft clinks as you slot each can into place. The motion is slow, rhythmic, familiar. Your fingers move with memory more than intent. Each drink has its slot. Solar Lime goes top right. Static Berry takes the left middle row. You briefly consider rearranging everything just to keep the machine guessing, but you remember what happened last time. The blinking light doubled its pace, and the entire bay started playing the same 4-second chime until someone put the cans back in order. The room around you hums quietly. A low, almost subconscious noise that fills the silence without really becoming sound. Somewhere in the wall, a fluid line gurgles. Behind the far panel, a pressure valve releases a puff of something meant to remain unexamined. You've stopped questioning those little moments. This station is held together by regulations, yes, but mostly by shared disinterest in looking too closely at anything that isn't directly malfunctioning. You pause halfway through the crate and look around. To the left, a table floats at a tilt, its magnetic base giving up sometime last month. It's pinned awkwardly against the wall, like a tired bat. On it sits a coffee bulb, half full, and a single spoon hovering like it's trying to remember what it was doing. The spoon wasn't there yesterday. You're sure of it. You finish with the first row of cans and slide the door shut. The machine lets out a soft beep of approval. You nod back. No one speaks here, but acknowledgement matters. Even between you and a 200-pound aluminum rectangle that once refused to dispense anything until it was called Sir. Leaning back against the supply rack, you let your shoulders relax. The ceiling is low, but it feels wider than it should. There's something about space that stretches you in strange ways, like your body remembers gravity, and without it, has no idea what shape to settle into. Your neck cranes slightly, adjusting to the constant float. It's quiet. No beeping. No footsteps. Just the steady, whispering drone of life support doing its job in the background, like a white noise machine that costs several $billion. You slide the second crate open. This one's got a misprinted batch of Nova Citrus, where the logo features an extra sun. You wonder if anyone will notice. Probably not. The novelty helps. Last month, someone snuck in a test flavor called Nebula Root Beer that glowed faintly in the dark. It got pulled within 3 days. Apparently, the glow wasn't decorative. Halfway through loading, you feel a soft shift under your feet. Not motion, just the sense that the station itself has tilted or breathed in. You glance at the vending machine. It's still waiting. A red indicator blinks gently. You return to your work, pressing the cans into their respective bays with slow, deliberate care. At the bottom of the crate, a single unlabeled can sits by itself. No barcode. No markings. Just smooth silver, cold to the touch. You hold it up to the vending machine. The panel blinks yellow, then green, then back to red. The machine doesn't say anything, but you swear you can hear it judging you. You slide the can into the bottom row. If it explodes, you'll just tell them it came pre-installed. That excuse worked last time. With everything in place, you slide the final panel shut and tap the console. The machine hums louder, then settles. The red light fades. The bay falls back into silence. You grab the clipboard, check the last box, and leave a small note in the margin. All stocked. Bonus can included. You're welcome. The machine beeps once, sharply. You narrow your eyes at it. Then, you float to the break alcove and wedge your boots into the stirrups. The room smells faintly like stale citrus and whatever was reheated earlier. You settle in. A full bay. No alarms. No customers. Just the soft, heavy quiet of everything working, for once. Behind you, the vending machine begins playing soft instrumental jazz. It's a choice. You close your eyes anyway. You drift slowly along the corridor outside the vending bay, one gloved hand trailing the railing as you go. The metal is cool and just slightly greasy, like every hand that has ever used it left behind a microscopic farewell. The lights overhead stutter for half a second before resuming their dull green-tinted glow. You're used to that. The flicker never means anything. They've checked the system a dozen times. It always comes back with the same conclusion. Everything is technically fine. This stretch of corridor was once meant for foot traffic. That phrase feels almost quaint now. No one walks anymore. You float, push, glide. It's more honest. Gravity would only get in the way of the stains on the walls, the scuffed insulation padding, the condensation that pools in odd corners. To your left, you pass a viewing panel designed to simulate a groundside landscape. The station calls it the Serenity Mural. It's a digital image of a sunlit park in southern Oregon, complete with pine trees, benches, and a small pond that loops its ripple pattern every 9 minutes. The effect is calming in theory, but you've seen it so many times that your brain starts counting the ducks in the background before you even realize what you're looking at. The ducks are always there. They never blink. Sometimes you try to name them. The corridor bends slightly. Ahead, you recognize the odd bulge in the wall, a storage unit with a malfunctioning hinge that never quite seals. Someone tried to fix it with adhesive foam and a polite sign that reads, "Please close gently," as if the hinge had hurt feelings. The foam has since lost its stickiness and now floats gently behind the panel like a lazy ghost, occasionally startling new personnel. You leave it alone. It's not hurting anyone. You pass a section of open lockers. Each one is a monument to personal preference and quiet rebellion. One contains a pair of mismatched boots, 3 energy bars arranged by color, and a laminated photo of a very old dog wearing sunglasses. Another is stuffed with empty soda cans, carefully flattened, each one labeled in pen with someone's initials and a different mood. Neutral Thursday. Almost resigned. Thinking about soup. The person who left those is long gone, transferred to Europa Station or retired entirely. The cans remain, quietly grating the air. Further down, you pause in front of the hydration supply panel. It's been taped shut with several overlapping labels, each one more exasperated than the last. The most recent reads, "Seriously, don't open unless you enjoy legal reports." Inside, though, you know what's waiting. Crates of Quantum Fizz, Diet Nebula, Lime Event Horizon, and a mystery batch that's been around since 2000, 139. You assume it's still carbonated. It buzzed faintly the last time someone nudged the crate. You decide not to check today. The corridor widens into what the station map calls a recreational pocket. It's not large, and calling it recreational is generous. There's a semicircular bench fused to the wall, its cushions permanently indented in the shape of someone's lower back. Above it, a flickering panel scrolls motivational quotes from a library that hasn't been updated since 2102. You catch one as you float past. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated daily. The light flickers. The quote repeats. You mutter something unrepeatable under your breath and keep going. In the center of the space floats a suspended tray with a magnetic deck of cards mid-game. Solitaire again. The cards rotate lazily, perfectly preserved in zero gravity. A 7 of diamonds spins next to a 3 of spades. You leave them untouched. Whoever started the game will be back. Probably. Maybe. Games like this never end. They just hover until someone forgets whose turn it was. You push yourself gently down a narrower access tunnel. The walls here are closer, wrapped in dull gray insulation that smells faintly like warmed plastic. You pass by a duct vent that clicks in perfect intervals. That's new. Or maybe it's always done that, and you're just noticing now. The sound is clean, precise, almost comforting. It reminds you of the metronome your neighbor used to use in the practice pod. He left months ago, and the station's been quiet ever since. You stop at a junction where 3 paths meet. The directional labels are still there, but time has faded them to a series of pastel smudges that vaguely resemble the concept of arrows. You don't need them. You know every path here. You know which one leads to the crew gym that was converted into a micro-storage unit, and which one leads to the algae filtration loop that someone decorated with smiley face stickers that have since turned green. You take the right passage. Ahead, you spot the faint glow of the vending bay again. It's strange how far it feels when you're not in a hurry. The panel above the door still flickers every third pulse. The vending machine inside waits with what can only be described as polite impatience. You're not done yet. You pass the secondary storage locker, the one you've been meaning to clean out. You haven't. No one has. It's still full of mislabeled crates and ancient inventory, manifests that reference discontinued flavors and a product line called Thirst Protocol that was quietly recalled after 2 shipments. You peered into it once, saw something moving. Might have just been condensation shifting. Might have been a can settling. You shut the door and logged it as stable. It felt honest. As you float back toward the vending machine, your path takes you past a broken hand scanner that now serves as an unofficial message board. Scraps of paper hover in place, anchored with magnetic strips and wishful thinking. Most are notes, someone asking if the station's library AI is ever going to be upgraded, someone else offering to trade freeze-dried pineapple for blueberry, and one that simply says, "If the soda machine speaks to you, don't answer." You added that one a while back, after a weird night shift and a misconfigured firmware patch. Finally, the vending bay comes back into full view. The glow from the machine is oddly reassuring, a rectangle of color and purpose in a place full of beige. You grip the nearest handrail and pull yourself back inside. The hum of the machine meets you like an old coworker who never learned your name but always nodded hello. You take one last look around. The station is quiet. Still. Not because nothing's happening, but because everything happening is so gentle, so repetitive, so continuous that it doesn't feel like movement anymore. Just function. Just rhythm. You return to the crate. The cherry soda is still there. Of course it is. The brake alcove sits just a few meters from the vending bay, nestled into a curved corner of the maintenance ring. It's not really a room. It doesn't have doors or proper walls. Just a set of fold-out benches, a table secured with magnetic latches, and a pair of warming units bolted into the wall that claim to be microwave compatible, though one of them has a scorch mark that tells a different story. You make your way there now, slow and steady, using the rails to guide your body like you've done 1,000 times before. You hook your boots into the floor stirrups and settle onto the bench. It's a habit, the stirrups, not the sitting. The bench is rigid, lightly padded, and shaped for a kind of comfort that seems designed by committee. You sit there anyway. The table floats slightly off-kilter until you nudge it into place with your palm. You've always liked this spot, despite its absurdity. Maybe because of it. The lighting here is a touch warmer than in the corridor. It hums less, too, or maybe your ears have simply adjusted. The artificial sunlight modules give everything a faint golden glow, which makes the metal walls look less cold, more like brushed copper. Someone once tried to hang a curtain to make it feel cozier. It fell after a week, and no one's mentioned it since. You look down at the table. The surface is scratched, especially in the center, where hands and containers and tools have passed over it endlessly. There's a faint discoloration shaped exactly like a coffee mug, and a longer stain that might be spaghetti or hydraulic fluid. It reminds you, unexpectedly and sharply, of the breakfast table from your childhood. Same battered surface. Same noise when you set something down too hard. The memories don't rush back all at once, just flicker at the edges of your mind like half-lit signs. There was a window by that old table, too. Not much of a view, mostly the neighbor's fence and a lopsided tree that bloomed too early each spring. But every morning, the light would come in sideways, cut across the counter, and land right in your cereal bowl. You'd sit there with a spoon, watching dust float in the sunlight, half awake and entirely fine with it. This alcove doesn't have a window. It has a faux-paneled view screen that used to play an Earth sunrise loop, but someone reprogrammed it during a heat wave to show glaciers and overcast skies instead. You leave it that way. It fits the vibe. Bleak, but soothing. Your tea bulb floats nearby, caught in a netted pocket next to the wall. You retrieve it, twist the valve, and take a slow sip. The flavor claims to be elderflower harmony, but it mostly tastes like warm linen and the idea of flowers. You don't mind. The warmth is enough. You lean back and let the tea linger at the back of your throat, letting your thoughts spread out across the quiet space. To your right, a poster is taped crookedly to the wall, featuring an outdated advertisement for a soda flavor that was discontinued 5 years ago. Solar Tangerine, for those who dare to drink the sun. The model in the ad is mid, laugh, mouth open in pure, citrus-based joy. You're fairly certain that photo was taken on a soundstage somewhere in Arizona and composited with space station elements later. Still, it holds its place here with pride. No one's taken it down. Your eyes wander to the warming unit's control panel, where someone scratched a tiny smiley face into the surface. Not drawn, scratched. It took time. Maybe done with a fork, maybe just a fingernail, and a lot of commitment. The face isn't happy or sad. Just there, watching, waiting for leftovers. You finish your tea and set the bulb down gently. It hovers for a moment, then spins slowly in place like a lazy satellite. You watch it until it bumps softly against the table's edge, then catch it and place it back in the netting. The alcove doesn't have a clock, but you always know how long you've sat here. It's a rhythm you've memorized, 10 minutes, give or take. Just long enough to feel like you stepped outside the loop. Just long enough to pretend the soda machine isn't silently judging you from down the hall. The sounds of the station fill the quiet. The occasional hiss of the air processor, the soft tap of something expanding behind the wall, the low thrum of recycled power as it moves from battery cell to battery cell. Everything here is designed to be unnoticed. It's functional. Background. White noise with a maintenance log. You stand slowly, boots clicking free of the stirrups with that tiny magnetic pop that's always more satisfying than it should be. The alcove doesn't change as you move. It doesn't need to. It's not a place of purpose, just a resting point. A small orbit within your larger route. As you float past the table, you run your hand over the center scratch again. It feels the same as it did yesterday and the day before. That's comforting. There aren't many constants in this line of work. Schedules shift, personnel rotate, systems get replaced. But this table, this slightly uneven bench, this overheated warming unit that always smells like old chili, they're part of the architecture now. Not in the schematics, but in the soul of the station. You give the poster one last glance as you leave. The soda model's laugh seems slightly smug today. You raise an eyebrow at it and turn away. You've got more cans to stack. Back in the vending bay, the machine has begun softly playing a loop of smooth jazz. You don't know where it got the file. You didn't authorize that, but the station's systems have always had a mind of their own. The cans are chilled. The lights are dimmed. Everything hums with the deep, practiced rhythm of maintenance, of routine, of someone taking care of things not because they're important, but because someone has to. And for now, that someone is you. You linger near the vending bay without realizing it, your hand resting gently on the edge of the supply rack. There's nowhere else to be right now. The shift has no countdown, no ticking tasks, no surprises waiting around the corner. Just space. Quiet, easy space. The kind that stretches out without requiring anything from you. The vending machine stops humming, not because something's wrong, but because its cycle is complete. It's fully stocked, powered, and content, as much as any machine can be. The silence that follows isn't heavy. It feels earned. You let go of the rack and drift a few inches backward, your momentum slow and forgiving. The air feels the same as always, filtered, dry, faintly citrus from a nearby dehumidifier. You breathe it in, slowly, then again, slower. Each breath reminds you that nothing is urgent. Nothing is late. The corridor is empty. The screens are dark. Even the overhead fans, which usually emit a faint chatter, have settled into an unusually quiet spin. There's no one on this side of the ring at the moment. Just you, some gently orbiting cans of soda, and a station that has momentarily forgotten to be busy. You turn slightly in place, adjusting your center of mass until you're floating horizontally, parallel with the ceiling. You tuck your arms behind your head and let your knees bend slightly, toes pointed toward the floor but never touching it. The absence of gravity has trained you to find comfort in odd positions. This one feels good, like you've dropped into a warm bath without the water. Your eyes trace the length of the ceiling panel above. There's a hairline crack near the junction seam, barely visible unless you know where to look. You do. You've seen it dozens of times. It hasn't grown. It probably never will. Still, you check at each shift, just in case. Beneath you, the magnetic floor panels hum faintly, not with activity, but with continuity. Everything here has a rhythm. Vents cycle. Panels creak. Fans whisper. The vending machine breathes in light and lets it out again through its display screen, which now reads, "Enjoy responsibly." There's nothing to enjoy just yet, so you do the next best thing. You let your thoughts stop moving. Not forcefully, just gradually. Like a train coasting to a gentle stop at a station with no passengers. You watch them slow down, tasks, plans, memories, to-do lists. All of it softens until it hovers around you like dust in a still room. You close your eyes for a moment. Behind your eyelids, the world shifts to darkness. Not the kind that pulls or isolates, just the regular kind. The kind that waits. You breathe again, slow and even. The rhythm feels familiar, but you don't track it. You let it happen. You let everything happen without needing to name it. Somewhere behind a wall, a relay clicks. Not urgently, just a reminder that systems are still doing what they're supposed to. The sound fades quickly. You drift in and out of listening. You hear your own breath, your own heartbeat in the quiet. You hear the subtle tap of a can shifting slightly on its spring-loaded slot. You don't open your eyes just yet. There's no need. The station isn't going anywhere. No alarms. No new shipments. No requests from command. Just the slow, slow spin of the station as it glides in its orbital loop, invisible to anyone not already here. A small breeze stirs the air near your cheek, just enough to suggest motion. You've been near this vent long enough to know it cycles every 6 minutes. The breeze isn't meant to be felt. Not really. It's part of the life support balance, a subtle correction to airflow. But you feel it anyway. You always do. You stretch your arms out slowly, gently. The joints in your shoulders shift, but don't crack. There's no pressure here. No weight to resist. Just muscle memory, habit, the quiet desire to feel your limbs move in a space where nothing pushes back. You flex your fingers and let them float freely. The movement is soft, aimless. You tilt slightly, your shoulder brushing against the storage panel. The surface is smooth, slightly warm from the internal systems. You press your palm flat against it and feel the faint hum beneath your skin. It's not comforting in any dramatic way. It just is. It exists, and you're here to notice it. The light dims slightly. That happens once every cycle, a minor fluctuation as the station rebalances power distribution. It's not dramatic. It lasts 3 seconds at most. But in those 3 seconds, everything feels even quieter, even slower. You keep your eyes closed through it, letting the dark settle without resistance. When the light returns, you don't move right away. You let your awareness catch up. Let your body stay where it is, untouched by anything but the air and the memory of movement. There's a phrase painted in tiny stencil letters near the maintenance hatch above your head. You'd never noticed it until a few shifts ago. Hold gently. Breathe normally. You're not sure if it's a reminder for handling equipment or just a philosophical suggestion. Either way, you follow it. You open your eyes. The vending machine hasn't moved. Of course it hasn't. Its screen cycles through its preloaded slogans with the same solemn pace. You watch it scroll slowly from satisfaction delivered to hydration elevated. There's something strangely calming about how deeply it believes in its own importance. You take one more breath and feel your body sink, not into a chair, not into the floor, but into the stillness itself, into the space, into the quiet. And then, softly, without decision or direction, you reach toward the rail again, letting your fingers wrap around it, letting the smallest amount of pressure return you to motion. The moment has passed, and yet it hasn't. Stillness follows you here, even as you begin to move again. The vending machine beeps once, not a request, not an alert, just a sound, a reminder that you're not the only one awake. If you've made it this far, and you're still listening, thank you for being here. If you're enjoying this quiet story aboard a quiet station, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. It helps keep the lights on and the vending machine humming. You return to the alcove without thinking about it, the same way you might return to the sink while waiting for water to boil, or the porch when the evening breeze starts to show up. It's not about comfort exactly, more like gravity pulling you back to a place where your thoughts don't have to do much. The bench creaks faintly as you settle in. Not from your weight, of course, just from use, from the little tensions built into this place over time. You hook your boots into the stirrups again and stare across the corridor, past the vending bay, past the glowing display screen still proudly advertising zesty moon mist, and further into the static blur of your own thoughts. You remember working in a grocery store once. A long time ago. Planetside. It wasn't particularly exciting, but it had fluorescent lights and shelves that needed facing. That was what they called it. Facing. Making sure the products on the shelves were all aligned. Labels forward, gaps filled. It wasn't about function. The customers didn't care. It was about order. Visual calm. You didn't mind the monotony. In fact, you liked it. The early morning shifts especially, the doors still locked, the aisles cool and empty, the only sound the faint whine of refrigeration units humming behind the milk cases. You'd walk down each aisle with a box cutter in your back pocket and the same 4 songs looping from the overhead speakers. A quiet rhythm to everything. There was a coffee station at the front of the store. Not a real one, just a counter with a drip machine, paper cups, a stack of sugar packets slowly fusing into a brick. Most of the regulars ignored it. But once in a while, a delivery driver would come in right before dawn, lean against the counter like it was a tradition, and drink the coffee like it was a punishment he willingly accepted. You'd nod at each other. Never talked. Just nodded. Like, yes, we're both here again. Still happening. Still standing. Back then, you didn't think about space. Not really. You knew it existed, obviously. You watched the launches on shared TVs and read the headlines. But it always felt like something for other people. People with excellent grades, carefully managed ambitions, childhood dreams involving stars and orbital math. Not someone who was good at shelf arrangement and halfway decent at pretending to be helpful. And yet, here you are. A soda technician, or vending operator if you want the official term, stationed several hundred kilometers above Earth, floating quietly between cans of carbonated flavor, and a station that forgets it even exists most of the time. You're not bitter. That's not what this is. This is just memory drifting up when the present moment becomes soft enough to let it. You'd spend your breaks at that old store leaning against a mop sink in the back hallway, sipping cold coffee out of a disposable cup and reading whatever book had been left in the lost and found for too long. Once it was a spy novel with the first 30 pages missing. Another time it was a cookbook for people with exactly 4 ingredients. You never took them home. You just read them where they were. You remember how the building would hum after closing, the way the ventilation system clicked on, the faint knock of pipes adjusting to the temperature change. It was almost peaceful. You'd lean your head against the cool wall tiles and feel the whole structure breathe through you. That feeling isn't so different from this place. It's strange what comes back. Not the big moments, not the job interviews or the birthdays, or the days you thought you made important choices. Just the quiet ones. The repeated ones. The ones you never thought to remember. Like the sound of the back door slamming shut with a gust of cold morning air. The way the break room fridge always had one container of ranch dressing no one would claim. The off-brand mop bucket that squeaked when pushed too fast. You carry those things, even if you don't know why. The bench beneath you squeaks again as you shift. Same pitch. Same protest. You stare at the vending machine, still full, still lit. Still doing exactly what it was built to do. You wonder if that old break room fridge is still there. Maybe. Maybe not. But the shape of it, the weight of its door, the texture of the sticker that said "Do not block vent," that's all filed away in some quiet corner of your mind. You sigh, and the sound bounces gently off the wall. Not loud. Just enough to remind you that you're here. That this station has walls and dimensions and objects that your breath can push against. You sit with that for a while. Let it settle. You remember telling someone once, maybe a supervisor, maybe yourself, that you didn't want a job with surprises. That predictability felt better than ambition. You didn't mean it as a grand statement. Just a preference. But it's funny, looking back, how often that choice shows up in your life. You didn't chase stardom. You didn't chase K's. You didn't chase much, really. But you're here, in a station orbiting quietly above a planet filled with shelf stalkers and mop sinks and unlabeled ranch dressing. You got farther than you expected. Not dramatically. Not heroically. Just farther. And now, you sit, alone in a soft-lit alcove, resting between restocks, and the air tastes faintly like elderflower, or maybe linen, and the stillness doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. Maybe the station isn't so different from that grocery store. A long corridor, a humming system, a quiet task that needs doing, and you, somewhere in the middle of it, making sure everything is where it should be. Labels forward. Gaps filled. You let your hands rest, palms down on the table. The surface is warm now. Your breath is steady. Your eyes trace the same old scratch in the corner, a nick shaped vaguely, like the state of Missouri. No reason to move just yet. The vending machine beeps once, softly, not for you. Just doing its rounds. Just part of the rhythm. You close your eyes, let your thoughts dissolve again. The past, the shelf, the mop bucket, they all sink slowly beneath the surface, like bubbles in a drink that's already gone flat. And you sit, breathing gently as the station floats on. It starts with a sound, a soft, hollow clink, the kind only a vending machine can make when it adjusts its internal stacks. The kind you've heard 100 times but never really listened to. You tilt your head toward it, not startled, just tuned. The sound bounces gently in the space, then fades. Your fingers are resting on the edge of the table again, same as before. The slight vibration from the sound trails up into your hands, barely noticeable. And then, like a trick of temperature or scent or muscle memory, you're no longer here. You're back in the break room of your first proper job. A warehouse. Nothing glamorous. Inventory, mostly. The walls were beige in a way that felt offensive, like the color itself had stopped trying. The table in that break room was laminated, and bowed in the middle from years of microwaved lunches and coffee spills. You can smell it now. Over-salted soup, plastic steam, something fried too long the night before, and reheated out of stubbornness. You're sitting on a folding chair with one leg shorter than the others. You've balanced it with a torn paper coaster that never quite stays put. The fluorescent light overhead is buzzing again. It always buzzes. You'd submitted a maintenance ticket for it twice before giving up. Across from you, someone's trying to fix a jammed snack machine with a plastic fork. It's not going well. You're pretending not to watch. There's something funny about how delicate they're being, as if the machine's feelings might be hurt by too much force. They nudge the fork in further, pause, then mutter something like, "It's got an attitude today." You'd almost forgotten this. The slow afternoons. The way time settled differently in that room, like syrup instead of water. You'd stretch your legs, drink whatever energy drink was cheapest that week, and read labels on cleaning supplies when you ran out of conversation. The ceiling had a panel that sagged slightly, like it was about to give up. You used to stare at it during long breaks, half expecting it to fall, never quite disappointed when it didn't. The microwave had a sticky dial and a cracked button. It gave off an audible click when you pressed start. followed by a sound that suggested the food might survive the heating process, but with character-altering consequences. Your memory of this room is precise, but not sharp. It's been worn smooth by time. No drama, no major event. Just the repetition of days spent in artificial light, surrounded by machines, paper towels, lukewarm coffee, and people pretending to be busier than they were. It felt like a life with borders. You clocked in, you clocked out, and everything in between was boxed up neatly like expired granola bars. There was a calendar pinned to the corkboard by the fridge. A cartoon cat doing yoga poses. You never saw anyone flip the page. It stayed on July for 3 months. Someone eventually added a post-it note that said, "Time is fake." You remember smiling at that. Still kind of agree. A voice. Someone from that job. Someone whose name you've forgotten. Once told you the best part of work was the 15 minutes after lunch when nothing could be expected of you. You weren't still eating. You hadn't started again. You were just there. A person in a chair, momentarily unneeded. That stuck with you. It still does. The clink comes again, this time in the present. You're back in the vending bay, though it takes a second to notice. The sound didn't change. The machine here makes the same soft adjustment noise when it shifts its cans. It's almost comforting, like a sigh made of aluminum. You glance at the panel, still glowing with calm purpose. Your T-bulb drifts slightly on its tether. You reach out to catch it, and notice your fingers are a little slower than before. Relaxed. Loose. The kind of slow that comes from stillness, not exhaustion. You take another sip. The taste hasn't improved, but it doesn't need to. It's warm. That's enough. The light outside the alcove dims slightly, just a subtle flicker as the orbital shade passes between the station and the sun. The onboard systems don't bother simulating the full effect, but you can feel the shift. A minor dip in brightness. The colors of the wall go from pale gold to muted tan. For a second, the space looks exactly like that old break room, minus the smell of burnt popcorn. You smile, not out of joy exactly, but out of recognition. That room, that time, is part of you in a way you didn't expect. You carry it the way a jacket holds the scent of wherever it's been, not always noticeable, but always there. You place the T-bulb back and adjust your position in the stirrups. The bench groans slightly, right on cue. Somewhere in the station, a cooling unit rattles softly, probably near the hydroponics bay. It's always been louder than it should be. You stopped reporting it months ago. As the light shifts back to its usual hue, you breathe in again, slow, unforced. The present wraps itself around you gently, like a soft blanket pulled over a fading dream. The memory doesn't vanish. It just moves further away, like a sound from another room. You glance at the vending machine one last time. Still full. Still glowing. Still here. And so are you. The bench is quieter now. Not literally, it still creaks faintly when you shift your weight. Still gives that soft magnetic click when you move your boots, but quieter in the way a room can feel after a long exhale. You sit with your hands in your lap, not doing anything, not planning to. The tea is gone. The vending machine hums softly in the background, cycling through its slogans without urgency. You let your gaze blur. The light above buzzes once, then falls back into silence. The stillness has weight now, not heaviness, but presence. And from within it, a thought floats up, quiet and familiar. You never did learn to play an instrument. It's not a regret. Not really. Just a small fact that returns now and then, especially on days like this, or nights, depending on the cycle, when time stretches out soft and undemanding. You think about the keyboard your cousin left in your apartment for 6 months, untouched except for that one afternoon when you tried to figure out the melody to a song you couldn't remember the name of. You made it halfway through, then got distracted by laundry or dinner or some other small, necessary thing. You didn't forget the keyboard. You just stopped looking at it. One day it was gone, reclaimed, and returned to someone who swore it was only borrowed. You never asked for it back. You think about that sometimes. Not the music, but the chance. The untaken left turn. Not that you imagined becoming a concert pianist or writing symphonies. It was never about that. It was about sitting with something long enough for your fingers to understand what your brain didn't. About learning a new language that didn't need words. And yet, here you are, years later, orbiting Earth in a quiet vending bay, having never once learned which key was middle C. There are other things, too. A garden you once meant to start. A trip you told yourself you'd take once things settled down. A language you practiced for 2 weeks and then dropped when your schedule shifted. Not out of laziness. Not out of fear. Just out of life. Out of the quiet gravitational pull of daily routine. You never wanted much, but you always thought, somewhere in the background, that you'd make time for something small and just your own, a thing you didn't owe to work or efficiency or someone else's expectations. You told yourself that when the pace slowed down, you'd finally do it. Now the pace has stopped entirely, and you find yourself wondering if maybe it was never about time. You rub your thumb against your palm, slowly, absent-minded. The skin is dry. You think of how your hands have spent the last decade touching machines, panels, crates. So many touch points, none of them quite yours. You wonder what they'd look like wrapped around the neck of a guitar or holding a trowel in a patch of dirt that actually belonged to you. You wonder what it would feel like to be a person who paints. Not professionally, just on weekends. The kind of person who buys brushes they don't understand and ends up covered in color by accident. You wonder if that version of you would still drink the same tea, if they'd still have the same jokes, if they'd still remember to restock the lemon-lime row before it runs dry. You don't long for those versions. You don't ache for them, but you do picture them, now and then. They sit across the table from you like friendly strangers. Not haunting, not lost, just unexplored. Paths you glanced at, nodded to, then kept walking past. One version of you lives in a small town where the grocery store still plays old music, and the post office closes at 4. Another version runs a food truck on a coastline you've never visited, spending mornings slicing vegetables and afternoons joking with regulars who don't even ask for a menu anymore. Another is somewhere deep in a quiet library, not reading, just organizing the books, touching spines, repairing worn corners, leaving notes in margins only they will ever understand. They're all harmless. They mean you no harm. They sit with you now, in this soft-lit alcove, while the vending machine continues its quiet routine of anticipation. You glance at the machine's display. It's advertising fizzy stardust now, a flavor discontinued 2 years ago, but still cycling through the graphic loop like nothing ever ended. You wonder if the marketing team ever meant for that flavor to last. If they thought people would drink it once and never stop, or if they always knew it would quietly disappear, leaving behind only a bright blue button with no function. You wonder what it would take to be someone who makes things. Not restocks, not maintains, makes. A drink, a song, a joke. You've made people laugh before, but usually by accident. You once told a joke at a meeting that made your supervisor drop her tablet. You didn't even mean for it to be that funny. It was just an observation about the labeling system and a rogue banana sticker. That moment plays back in your head more often than it should. You think it might be one of your favorite memories? Not because of the joke, but because of the sound, the laughter, the surprised bark of it, the break in the meeting's rhythm. For 1 second, everyone forgot where they were. That's worth something. You rest your head against the padded wall. The fabric smells like warm dust and sanitizer. You close your eyes again. What if you had followed any of those small things? The instrument, the garden, the wrong turn into something impractical. Would it have made you happier? Maybe. Maybe not. Would it have made you more yourself? Hard to say. Would it have given you a new set of small, unsolved longings? Almost certainly. Still, you let the thoughts stretch out. Not to plan. Not to fix. Just to hold. You imagine what it would feel like to plant something and watch it grow. Not a metaphor, a real plant, with roots and dirt and decisions. You imagine being the kind of person who has a shelf of failed recipes and keeps trying anyway. Who gets frustrated with sourdough starters and then wakes up the next day to try again. It's not a fantasy, not a dream, just a what if. And somewhere inside, you ask quietly, did I wait too long? There's no answer. The vending machine doesn't chime. The station doesn't whisper wisdom. But your breath stays steady. Your body stays warm. And the thought lingers, gentle and slow. Maybe the key was always in your pocket. Maybe you just liked the feeling of walking past the door. You let that settle. You let the door remain closed. And you sit with it. Not regret. Not hope. Just stillness, with a trace of curiosity. You shift your weight slightly on the bench, and the stirrups creak faintly as your boots nudge against their anchors. Nothing hurts. Nothing strains. You're just adjusting, like a rock worn smooth by the same tide, day after day. The vending bay remains quiet. The tea bulb bobs gently in its net. And you sit there thinking not of now, but of then, a then that hasn't happened yet. What will this place look like in 30 years? Not the vending machine specifically, though that's part of it. It might still be here, or maybe replaced by something sleeker, thinner, with buttons that respond to gestures or voices. Maybe people won't even drink soda in the same way. Maybe they'll hydrate via capsule, or vapor, or subcutaneous misting. Maybe the vending machine will still be here, but inert, a relic no one wants to move. You can picture it. Same soft blue glow. Same cheerful screen, quietly ignored by a generation that thinks carbonation is quaint. And what about this station? The whole ring, the corridors, the climate modules. Will it still be in orbit? Will it still hum with life, however soft? Or will it drift, cold and powered down, a forgotten outline against the void, like a jacket left on a chair after the person who wore it has moved on? You don't ask these questions with sadness. More like curiosity, the way you'd wonder about a former neighbor. Are they still in town? Did they ever paint that fence? You don't need the answers. You just want to send the question out, see if it echoes. Maybe someone will be sitting here in the same bench one day. Same stirrups, same elbow-worn spot on the table edge. Maybe they'll wonder who sat here before them, and why the vending machine has an outdated promo for a flavor no longer in circulation. Maybe they'll rest their palm against the wall and feel the same hum you feel now, recycled air, filtered light, a rhythm that doesn't announce itself. Maybe the future vending machines will sing. You hope not. You've seen what happens when machines get ideas about personality. But, you admit, there's a part of you that wouldn't mind a small musical chime before dispensing. Something classical, maybe. Orironics. Something like Chopin before a can of Solar Cherry Surge. You wonder what else will change. The uniforms, for sure. Yours already feels outdated, even though it's only 2 standard years old. The fabric bunches at the wrists, and the collar toggle always drifts loose. You picture future workers with form-fitting suits that regulate temperature and don't collect lint in the Velcro seams. You hope their pockets are better. Yours are always full of crumbs from protein squares you swear you sealed. And what about the people? Will they still want this kind of job? Something repetitive, quiet, self-contained? Or will automation finally catch up to the vending route? Will the cans restock themselves, roll into position like obedient soldiers, scan their own barcodes and hum contentedly when aligned? Maybe they'll miss you. Maybe they won't even notice you're gone. You let the thought hang there for a moment, neither rejected nor embraced. Will someone inherit your maintenance logs? Will they scroll through them, notice your shortcuts, your margin notes, your habit of writing nominal, even when the readings were technically 1 decimal outside tolerance? Will they know why? Will they care? You wonder if the scratch on the ceiling panel will still be there. You hope it is. It feels like yours, in a strange way. Not a signature, not a message, just a detail you shared time with. The crack is fine, stable, uninterested in growing like some people you know. You let your gaze travel around the alcove. You take in the soft ring of discoloration on the table. The scuffed corner of the panel where the cleaning bot always misses. The poster of the laughing soda model that has somehow never peeled or faded, even after countless shifts and resyncs. You wonder if she'll still be laughing in 2146. 2176. Maybe someone will finally remove her, not knowing she was part of the furniture. You think about the future crew. What will they look like? Will they speak in clipped mission terms, or will they call each other by nicknames only half joking? Will they laugh? Will they lean their heads back against this same wall and sigh the same way you just did? You hope they keep the T-bulb. You hope they don't over-optimize it. There's something pleasant about holding a drink in zero gravity that threatens to float off unless you pay attention. It makes you careful, present, a little responsible for the experience. You breathe in again. The air is still citrus-tinged, still cool, still yours. For now. You wonder what kind of future you would want, if you had a say. Not just for the station, but for yourself. Do you picture yourself still here, still running the same route, still humming back at the machines when no one else is around? Do you see yourself on a different station, a more advanced model with built-in gravity and artificial views of alpine lakes that change with the seasons? Or maybe you're back planet-side, in a small apartment with a narrow window and a shelf of unopened tea packets. Maybe you're retired, or just between shifts. Maybe you stock your own fridge and mutter to it the way you used to talk to the vending machine. You let the possibilities stretch. None of them need to land. They just drift, like you do now, soft-edged, slow-moving, free of urgency. The vending machine beeps softly. Apolite, non-committal sound. Maybe it's telling you the orange soda row is nearing depletion. Maybe it's just keeping you company. You smile faintly. You think about how many people you've stocked for. People you'll never meet, faces you never saw, hands that pressed a button and took whatever came out. You think about all the quiet service you've provided, not dramatic, not heroic, not even particularly efficient, but consistent, steady. And maybe, in 30 years, that'll be remembered. Not with a plaque, not with a name, but with a machine that still works because someone once cared enough to tighten a bolt and realign a tray. Maybe the future doesn't need you to be exceptional, just present. You rest your head against the wall again. The hum continues. The soda cans wait in perfect rows. And the station keeps spinning, gently, into the next decade. The vending bay lights have dimmed again. Not by much, just enough to let the glow from the machine become the brightest thing in the alcove. It casts soft blues and yellows across the floor panels, flickering slightly as it cycles from add to idle and back again. You sit still, watching it without watching it, your eyes unfocused, your thoughts drifting toward nowhere in particular. And then, softly, your mind offers a thought. A small, improbable detail. What if the vending machine could talk? Not in a dramatic, self-aware way. Not sentient. Not annoying. Just conversational. Mild. Maybe it calls you friend when you walk in. Maybe it says things like, "Ah, a classic choice," when you restock the root beer. Or, "You again," in a fond, unbothered tone when you come by twice in one shift. Not because it knows anything about you. Just because it's had time to observe your habits and decided to have a personality that sounds like a retired librarian who's read every book twice. You let the fantasy roll out gently. No resistance. It doesn't need to make sense. That's not the point. Maybe the vending machine has a small grudge against the lemon-lime cans. Nothing serious. Just a lingering sense that they never quite earned their place. It prefers the classics, the cola, the orange fizz, the ginger brew that fizzes a little too much and always sells out before the second rotation. Maybe one day you find a note wedged behind the maintenance panel. Typed, of course. Vending machines don't do handwriting. It just says, "Thank you for putting the cherry row back in alphabetical order. It was driving me nuts." You imagine writing back. Just a post-it. "You're welcome." Try not to glitch when people press 2 buttons at once. And maybe, just maybe, the next time it lights up, it flickers an extra second on "thank you" like it's winking. You chuckle softly, then shift your weight on the bench. The alcove is silent, except for the occasional murmur of a circulating vent. But your thoughts keep drifting. You wonder if the soda flavors themselves ever get bored. Not because they're sentient, of course, just out of sympathy for anything that's been in the same row for too long. Maybe the orange fizz dreams of being a mystery flavor, just for a day. Maybe the ginger brew wants to go on vacation. Maybe the decaf options resent being labeled decaf, as if that makes them lesser. You've certainly had days where the caffeine-free lemon felt like a quiet little lifeline. You imagine pushing one of the buttons and getting something completely unexpected. Not broken, not wrong. Just different. Something new. A flavor that doesn't exist anywhere else. Cardamom cloud. Toasted air. Lavender cola. You wouldn't even question it. You just sip it slowly, nod once, and move on. Maybe the machine changes based on your mood. You show up tired and it offers chamomile cola. You show up restless and it flashes something with triple citrus and a warning icon. You show up nostalgic and it gives you a can with a vintage label you haven't seen since childhood, the kind of branding that disappeared years ago and shouldn't even be in the database. Maybe there's one day the machine offers you a note instead of a drink, folded neatly inside the dispensing tray. It just says, "You're doing fine." That's all. No logo. No formatting. Just that. And maybe, for some reason, it helps. You lean your head back again, the cushion barely giving. The air smells faintly of metal and fabric softener. Somewhere, far off, something clicks into place, a relay or sensor resetting. The ship's way of reminding you that everything's still running, even when nothing is happening. You close your eyes and let another thought bloom. What if, after hours, the vending machine rearranges itself? Not drastically, just a few tweaks. Maybe it puts the cranberry fizz next to the cola because it likes the way their colors look together. Maybe it moves the unpopular flavors to the front row just to give them a chance. A quiet rebellion. You'd never notice. Or maybe you would. Maybe you already have, and just chalked it up to human error. You imagine yourself catching it one day, walking in just as a can slides gently across a rail without assistance. The machine freezes. You freeze. Then, in perfect deadpan, it says, "You saw nothing," and goes back to humming. You smile again. The story in your head is quiet, harmless, warm. It doesn't want anything from you. It just exists. You wonder, if you fell asleep in this alcove, would the machine cover you with a blanket? Not a real one, of course, but maybe a quiet warmth in the lights. Maybe it dims the brightness just a touch more. Maybe it runs a loop of soft static instead of its usual jingle. Maybe it understands that you, too, are part of its inventory. A regular. A fixture. You picture a tiny plaque on the wall next to the keypad. One that reads, "This operator restocked 11, 0 cans without complaint." And maybe someone would see it in the future, smile and whisper, "Legend." None of this will happen. You know that. And yet, you let the ideas drift through you like soft dust in filtered light. They don't need to be true to be useful. They don't need to happen to be comforting. Sometimes, the mind just wants a place to wander, somewhere safe, absurd, and kind. You reach out and tap the side of the machine. Not hard. Just a gesture. A thanks, maybe. For being here. For not changing too much. For letting your thoughts have space. The vending machine doesn't respond. Of course not. But somehow, it feels like it knows. You breathe in, then out, then settle again into stillness. The fantasies dissolve. They leave behind nothing heavy. Just the feeling that, for a while, everything made a quiet kind of sense. You don't remember deciding to stop moving. It just happened. Your hands are resting palm down on your thighs. Your eyes are open, but they aren't looking at anything. The vending bay, the lights, the dull glow of the soda machine, all of it has settled into the same soft blur. The same still warmth. Like the last breath of a room before it empties. There's nothing left to adjust. No cans to check, no codes to log, no trays to refill. Every button is illuminated. Every row is aligned. The hum of the system continues at its usual tempo, unbothered by time. You sit there, not thinking, not drifting, just present. The air is calm, cool, without chill. The kind of temperature that doesn't ask anything of you. You shift slightly, not out of discomfort, but out of the body's quiet rhythm. The bench accepts you. The wall behind you supports your back with just enough give to be forgotten. The sounds. A soft breath of air through a vent, the slow rise and fall of filtered circulation, settle low in your awareness, like a blanket pulled up past your shoulders. Your breath slows, without prompting. In, then out. Light and even. A rhythm you don't have to manage. You feel your pulse behind your eyes, not sharply, just the way you'd feel the faint vibration of a ship's engine through the soles of your feet. A reminder that something inside you still ticks, still flows. Somewhere in the vending machine, a small motor resets. A tray hums softly, shifting a single can back into perfect position. The sound is gentle. It doesn't disturb you. It just joins the other sounds of the station, the tiny symphony of order continuing on whether you watch it or not. There are no questions now. Not the soft what-ifs of earlier, not the distant musings about the future, not even the background buzz of daily routine. Your mind has gone quiet. Not empty, just settled. Like dust on an unused console. Like steam fading from the mouth of a mug. You don't need to say anything. Not even to yourself. Yoryoff relaxes. Your shoulders follow. The weight in your arms, your legs, your hands, all of it begins to soften. You aren't holding anything now. Not tension. Not purpose. Not even the next moment. You're not asleep. Not yet. But you're close. Your eyes close, not sharply, more like curtains falling into place. The light on the other side is still there, still soft, still constant. But it no longer needs your attention. The seat beneath you holds your weight evenly now. Your spine feels longer, as if the station has gently pulled you into better alignment without asking for thanks. Your breath continues. A little deeper now. A little slower. You begin to lose the edges of the space around you. The alcove, the table, the machine. They're still there, but they've faded into the same soft palette. No sharp corners. No motion. No sound that wants a response. Even thought is slower now. Thicker. Like honey cooled in shade. One last sound. The faintest click from behind the vending panel. A lock settling, maybe. Or just an echo of nothing in particular. Then nothing. No final thought. No last decision. Just the quiet continuation of the hum, and your breath, and the stillness that needs no explanation. Everything softens. Everything holds. And everything remains. In the year 2145,